at Elnet UK and an expert on Iran. She joins us now. Catherine, thank you for being with us. There are a few thousand Jews living in Iran today. Would you say that they are paying the price for the rising tensions with Israel?
Absolutely. But look, I mean, ever since 1979, the Jewish community of Iran hasn't been saved, and they have suffered, all manners of oppression. I think that this new chapter is really just a way, for the regime to, number one, send a clear message, I think, to all Jewish community across the world in the diaspora, saying that no one is safe from the Islamic Republic. And number two, it shows you to which degree the regime is willing to fall into in order to repress its communities and actually use them to support not only the ideology, but literally their call for genocide. So now they're trying to employ the support of the Jewish community by forcing them to participate in a march and a call for genocide against their own people and therefore themselves. And it's absolutely abominable that they would use, and play the religious card in such a way to try to, number one, somewhat legitimize their call against the state of Israel, and number two, to portray their call for genocide as a political statement against Zionism and not the Jewish community per se. But I think it's rather clear that they are oppressing religious minorities, and that unfortunately, even though the Jewish community might be first in line, they certainly are not the only one that will suffer from the hands of the regime.
And if we talk a bit about the geopolitical situation right now, because as I mentioned, President Raisi was on the phone to Bashar al-Assad, the two are close allies, and they discussed the fact that in their eyes, Israel is coming to an end. They say that the world is changing into what they called an axis of resistance against Israel. It is true, isn't it, that Tehran has scored some major diplomatic victories lately. The agreement with Saudi Arabia, for example, it seems to be getting more and more countries over to its side.
I don't read it this way. I think it's just the case because, from my perspective, I think that because Western capital have left the fray and disengaged so uniquely, historically speaking, from the Middle East, that our partners, Saudi Arabia and others in the region, feel that they don't have a choice but to try to buy time. Until such a time where Western capital will decide to re-engage or someone in the region will decide to do something. So I think that this accord that they signed with Iran, through China, when it comes to Saudi Arabia, has more to do with the fact that Saudi Arabia needs some degree of stability and buy itself time to then decide what to do with the Islamic Republic, rather than really a realignment of sorts. I think that Saudi Arabia is very much aware that Iran is a nuclear, Iran in particular, and so it needs to do something. And right now, I think it's trying to send a signal to Washington and other Western capitals that if we are not willing to do something, then they're going to have to go and do it alone. This is how I read it. But certainly, yes, I think that we have allowed Iran to have more, I would say, mobility, geopolitically speaking, in the region.
And Algeria, of course, another country very hostile to Israel. Both Algeria and Iran calling on the Muslim world to unite against Israel. How close are the two countries, and do you think that that call will have some meaning for Muslims around the world?
I think so, in the sense that, again, you empowering the most radical elements in our society. When I say in our society, by that I mean it's not just the Islamic world that we're talking about. Muslim communities and therefore Islamic radicals are everywhere, and they most of the time holding Muslim community hostage of their narrative and the rhetoric of violence that they love to project. And it's, again, empowering them. And the fact that we are so willing to do nothing about it and actually withdrawing in the fear that any form of criticism might be labeled as Islamophobia is a danger. I think that we need to realize that Muslim communities suffer just as much as everybody else from the radicalism coming out of the Islamic Republic and that coming out of the Sunni world as well. This is a threat to humanity. When you see what is happening in Iran, you need to understand that it will happen everywhere else unless we pay strict attention. And the fact that Iran is targeting Israel now does not mean that Israel is the only country to suffer. And I think this is the mistake that people keep doing, believing that geography will protect them, believing that Iran will stop at Israel. Iran has no intention of just stopping at Israel. The fact that it kind of invaded, I say kind of because they don't have boots on the ground per se. They're controlling Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon to some extent. How many countries are we willing to lose to the imperialism of the Islamic Republic? I hope no more.
Catherine Perez-Shakhdam, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
Well, let's take a closer look at the security situation here in Israel. The Passover holiday has been far from peaceful. Two